morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the Scrum Simplified podcast. Imagine a place where we tackle the myths that have been surrounding Agile and Scrum and dive deep into the often overlooked and lesser known corners of Scrum. I'm your host, Chandani Patterson, and I am thrilled to embark on this adventure with you. I have been where you are, and I know the joys, the frustrations, and the aha moments that come with working within the Scrum framework. And I'm still learning every day, finding new ways to improve. So whether you're sipping your morning coffee, stuck in traffic, or enjoying a leisurely walk, tune in to our bite-sized episodes. Together, we'll uncover the secrets, debunk the myths, and bring focus to topics that are not very well known and deepen our Scrum knowledge. It's time to dive in, rethink, and rediscover Scrum with Scrum Simplified. Today's session is all about spikes. If you have been working in an Agile team, you may have either used or heard of spikes. In this episode, I want to dive deeper into what exactly spikes are, when do you need them, and how they should be used. A spike is a time-boxed exploration or investigation into a technical or functional uncertainty. I want you to focus on two things here. One, it is time-boxed, and two, it is an investigation into some form of uncertainty. The term spike comes from extreme programming, like all good things in software development, and has its roots in rock climbing. So when rock climbing, you sometimes cannot climb further because there is nothing to grab onto. To climb further, you need to drive a metal spike called a piton into the rock surface. So this spike or piton does not move you closer to the top, but forges a path for you to continue climbing on. A spike in software development serves a similar purpose. Spikes help to move forward when knowledge is lacking to build something. So put simply, a spike is a research task. It is a temporary, focused effort to answer a question, mitigate risk of some sort, or to gain knowledge about a particular problem or technology. Spikes are typically used when there is uncertainty about the feasibility, viability, or the effort that is required to implement a particular piece of functionality. For example, a spike might be used to investigate a new technology or framework, explore a potential solution to a complex problem, gain a better understanding of the non-functional requirements for a piece of functionality, or estimate the effort required to implement a particular feature. The output of a spike is typically a summary of the findings of the investigation that is then shared with the team. So this should include a description of the work that was done, the findings of the investigation, and any recommendations for further work. This output can be used to inform decision-making about whether or not to proceed with a particular piece of functionality. It can also be used to refine estimates and improve the accuracy of planning, adjust the backlog to incorporate new knowledge, and plan for any changes in the development process. The decision to create a spike and incorporate it into the current sprint is a collaborative effort made by the Scrum team, including the developers and the product owner, which ensures collective ownership and alignment with product goals. Now, here's an aha moment for you. Did you know that spikes are considered part of backlog refinement? Yes, they are. So during refinement, you can use the output of a spike to determine how to better refine a story or create additional stories as needed. Now, this helps ensure the team is well prepared ahead of sprint planning. Let's start to consider an example. Let's explore the scenario of implementing dynamic forms in a web solution. You have an epic stating users should be able to input data into forms. Now, there are numerous options available in the market to be able to do this, which presents a challenge in determining the optimal approach to use. We are also not sure how we would break up the corresponding epic, the one that says users should be able to input data into forms, or how to estimate the work around it. So the team decide to create a spike to research this. Now, during this spike, we look at multiple options available from a technical or functional perspective, and then at the end of the spike, we are ready with options. So maybe we find option A will definitely not work, but option B and C are good and could potentially give us what we need from this feature. B has a lot more features but a steep learning curve, while C is easier to start with but may not include everything we need. So based on what we find during our research, as a team, we then decide on the best option to go with. And we use this to refine the original epic and break it down as needed. Because you know more now and can start to better understand what is required to do. I just mentioned that we look at it from a technical or functional perspective. That is because there are two types of spikes. You can have a technical spike or a functional spike. Technical spikes, as the name implies, are used to investigate technical uncertainties, such as maybe the feasibility of using a new technology or framework, or the best way to implement a complex technical solution. So examples could be something like performance and scalability of a proposed architecture, the security implications of using a cloud-based solution, etc. Functional spikes, on the other hand, are used to investigate functional uncertainties, such as the best way to implement a particular feature or the impact of a proposed change on the user experience. So examples include best way to implement a search algorithm, or testing integration with a new system, or even writing the AC for a complex user story. Another way to think about this is the type of research. So a technical spike is planned when it is unclear how to build something. A functional spike is planned when more information is needed to decide what to build from a functional perspective. Sometimes, however, a spike could be either. For example, I gave you an example saying testing integration, right? So testing the integration between a new system and an existing system could be considered either a technical spike or a functional spike, depending on the context. If the goal of the spike is to investigate the feasibility of integrating the two systems or to identify any potential technical challenges, then you would consider it a technical spike. However, if the goal of the spike is to test how the integration will impact the user experience or to develop acceptance criteria for the integration itself, then it would be considered a functional spike. So here are some examples of questions that would be asked during a technical spike on the integration situation. What are the technical requirements for integrating the two systems? What are the potential challenges for integrating the two systems? What technologies and tools will be needed to perform the integration? Some examples of questions that you could ask during a functional spike, on the other hand, would be: how will the integration impact the user experience? What are the acceptance criteria for the integration? And how will the integration be tested? In some cases, it may be necessary to perform both a technical spike and a functional spike to fully understand the implications. I hope this helps understand the types of spikes better. There are some questions that are frequently asked when working with spikes. The first question I've heard quite often is, should we estimate spikes? Remember, the whole point of spikes is uncertainty. You just do not know. So I wouldn't waste time estimating a spike. But wait, what if the company you're working for needs you to have story points for every bit of task, every bit of work? Well, then I say do the same as you would for bugs. Just agree as a team on a story point value for a spike and use that. So my team and I, for example, have decided on using a 3 story point for spikes, and that's what we do for every spike. Another question that comes up very often is, can a spike span sprints? No. A spike is meant to be a short investigation, not going on forever. You should time box a spike and keep it within a sprint. Ideally, a few days to 1 week is what I'd suggest. But you can go up to a max of the sprint itself. You do not want to end up with an open-ended spike that goes on forever, or get into analysis paralysis with considering options forever. So if a spike is taking longer, it could imply that it is not focused enough. If you find yourself considering a spike that could potentially span over multiple sprints, I would consider breaking down the spike into smaller, focused tasks and then time box each task individually. Time box it, investigate it, make the decision, and move on. Some things to keep in mind when working with spikes. Keep spikes small and focused. We already discussed this. Keep spikes small and focused, and then time box spikes. Spikes should have a clearly defined start and end date. This helps to ensure that they do not become open-ended commitments. After the time box is up, a decision is made. Now, that decision itself may be to invest more hours in gaining more knowledge, and that is okay, as long as you stick to that time box for that particular spike itself. You want to make sure that the findings of the spike is visible to the whole team. This helps to ensure that everyone is aware of the information that was gathered. Because remember, we want to use spikes to inform decision making. The findings of the spike should be used to make informed decisions about whether to progress with a particular piece of functionality. Spikes should not be used to deliver working code. I've seen this happen a few times. Now, the goal of a spike is to gain information, and it's not to deliver working code. Usually, any code that was generated as part of a spike is thrown away. Don't overuse spikes. Remember, the goal is to deliver value every sprint, and having too many spikes could take away from this goal. Spikes can be disruptive to the flow of work. It is important to be mindful of the impact that spikes can have on the team's ability to deliver on their commitments within a sprint. Also, if a team is already aware of the information that they need, don't perform a spike. Spikes should only be used to investigate uncertainties. Once again, use them only when needed. You can definitely use spikes to give your team confidence in building a new feature, a brand new feature that you do not know enough about, and also how to split it up into chunks that fit within a sprint. However, it should not be used to figure out every little detail before you can work on the feature. Remember, you can do this as you start to work in the sprint itself. And one more thing, don't work on spikes earlier than needed. This is considered waste, and we want to do things just in time and at the last responsible moment. We've covered a lot of things today, and I hope you found this useful and learned something new that you didn't already know, or that it clarified some points for you around spikes. Final thought on the topic. Spikes in Agile development are intentional pauses for focused exploration, turning uncertainty into an opportunity for informed progress and decision making. Use them wisely. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If you found this valuable, please consider subscribing through your favorite podcast app. Giving this podcast a rating and/or review also helps others find this podcast. And please feel free to share this episode with your friends and colleagues. Also, do share your thoughts or questions and let me know how I can make this better for you. So until next time, my Scrum enthusiasts, keep that flame of learning burning bright. The journey to Scrum simplicity is yours to own, and I'm here with you every step of the way. This is Chandani signing off from Scrum Simplified. Catch you in the next episode, and until then, thrive in the world of Scrum and keep reaching for those Agile stars. Stay curious, stay agile, and never stop simplifying.